Second quarter GDP are now hitting the wires. 3% was our last look. It now jumps up to 3.3%. But from a comp basis, that would still be the best quarter since September of 23.
Well, the United States of America just had the best quarter in terms of GDP since 2023. Now, that's a rather different outcome to what most people would have expected due to all the uncertainty introduced by President Donald Trump. Certainly around tariffs, we had that kind of epic market sell-off, which the likes of Mike Wilson is calling essentially the bear market, and technically that very much is the case. When the stock market sells off, certainly the S&P to a magnitude of 20% plus, that would count as a bear market. And this is what I'm talking about. He's now saying a new bull has arisen. And we actually happen to agree with him based on historically looking at every time the S&P has gone on to put in a 20% plus pullback, going all the way back to 1980 and engulfed it, recovered it in a kind of V-shaped recovery. Typically, it's gone on to higher ground for a year, 2 years, potentially plus. And we think that's a similar outcome to what we're about to embark on based on recovering sort of the Trump tariff pullback. And we are getting somewhat decent economic data. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit this. They definitely tinker perhaps with the stats or the things that go into propping up the stats. I'm no fool, I understand that. But from a purely data point of view, if you do or don't want to trust it, and the markets do analyze this, in fact, just yesterday, really interesting, and one reason this is so big, the Secretary of Commerce and the kind of Commerce Department for the United States actually put this GDP data online for it to be immutable. And this is interesting because what you're going to get is trading strategies, all this kind of stuff coming off the back end of this, and Chainlink facilitated that. That's kind of was one of my aha moments with Chainlink, understanding what it does and the broad applications and how it can transform both the traditional space and the crypto space by combining them through this kind of, I guess, tunnel of data that they provide for these two worlds to meet. But them doing that we'll look at all that. Let's stick to the topic at hand, which is the fact that GDP actually came out rather well. The best quarter since 2023. And I think you're potentially going to see a lot more of a positive outcome than what many people, and certainly what people initially priced in for the S&P 500. We said that markets have this wrong, and that has been the case thus far, and we think that's going to continue to be the case. And all of this is relevant for us as crypto investors, because if the S&P 500 was tanking, well, what do you think crypto would be doing? It would be doing it to more of a magnitude. And we think that the S&P and markets generally, and we look at kind of the economy through the lens of markets, I guess, and charts, are going to be in a supportive environment that's going to see crypto flourish. We don't just derive that from what we're expecting for the S&P. We can also look at the fact that I believe the IWM, which is a basket of smaller cap stocks, is about to break out and start to move against the S&P, which is a basket of larger cap stocks, which is symbolic of a good general risk environment. I've not seen anybody kind of analyze this chart, but I do think this is on the cusp of breaking out. And we can also even do things like looking at BTC versus the SPY, which ultimately we believe is in an uptrend and is going to continue, meaning that the SPY is going to have to be going up because it's going to have to be a generally good economic environment, but Bitcoin's going to be outperforming. And in the same way, we are now looking at the end of BTC DOM, or at least for this cycle, we believe you're now entering or have entered phase 4, which is a downtrend. This is how we look at the market. Do become a patron. You'll learn about all this on the job with me. Within phase 3, which is the top, we have this sort of head and shoulders that will take us, I believe, down to 55%. And there are a concession of bull flags, or they're bear flags. They would be bull flags if we invert the chart, sort of taking us towards that 55% target. Really kind of more broadly taking us into phase 4, which is generally a good risk environment, supportive of what we're expecting for the S&P. And we've looked at a number of other charts quickly that support that, but supportive for the altcoin sector. And the crypto space generally, despite it having a bit of a lackluster day today. And just a comment on that, August playing out exactly as we said it probably would, and likely September's going to be a bit doldrumy. The summer doldrums is the period that we are now in. Just the way it goes. These are the two worst months, certainly September for the traditional market. The seasonality markets comes all the way, or goes all the way back to kind of agriculture. And it hasn't left us. But then you've got October, November, certainly November being the most bullish month. And if we have a repeat of what we saw last November, it's something you want to prepare for now. So to kind of summarize, the GDP data, I think, is confirming in regards to our bias, confirming in regards to what we're expecting for the S&P. We've got a number of other charts that we can kind of correlate, whether that's the IWM moving up against the S&P, which is small cap stocks moving against large cap stocks, outperforming. That's got to be a good risk environment, whether it's Bitcoin dominance rolling, whether it's continued upside for Bitcoin against the SPY. You know, it all points to this sort of bullish technical environment that we're expecting, and with continued sort of positive, whether the stats are sort of, you know, tinkered with or not. I think none of us are naive to suggest that isn't the case, or they don't, you know, do things or put things in place to essentially bolster the stats. It is another debate, but I think we are getting positive or certainly confirmation in regards to what we were expecting. What I want to do now is look at another huge announcement that took place yesterday. We did do a separate video on it, certainly related to Chainlink and some of the cryptos that are going to actually enable the United States government to put data on chain, and we'll look at the DLTs that are involved in that. What I want to do now is look at what Howard Lutnick said and what he's now gone and done. So let's go ahead and dive into, and we covered this in another daily market update, what he said earlier this week. They've now officially done that. It's on certain blockchains, kind of conducted by Chainlink and Pyth. And then we'll talk about the gravity of this and finish things off on a little bit of TA on Bitcoin and look at some ETFs.
Two more things. The Department of Commerce is going to start issuing its statistics on the blockchain, because you are the crypto president, and we are going to put out GDP on the blockchain so people can use the blockchain for data distribution, and then we're going to make that available to the entire government so all of you can do it. We're just ironing out all the details so we can do it.
I've got great news to share with you. They have now actually gone and done that. And this is big for a number of reasons. Not only is the United States government now leveraging cryptocurrencies, you know, this is Howard Lutnick himself saying the numbers are in. GDP growth has surged to 3.3%, and starting now, the Commerce government has put America's economic data on the blockchain for the first time ever. Under President Trump, the economy is strong, our workers are winning, and America is leading in the crypto economic innovation. Certainly a 1.8. We won't play this because it's got music attached to it, but this was their official announcement. It talks about GDP growth. It says the department published an official hash of its quarterly GDP data release for 2025. And in some cases, the top line GDP number to the following blockchains: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tron, Stellar, Avalanche, Arbitrum One, Polygon, and Optimism. The data was also further disseminated through coordination with the oracles, Pyth and Chainlink, and also the exchanges Gemini and Kraken help facilitate the department's publishing. The department will continue to innovate and broaden the scope of publishing future data sets like GDP to include the use of other blockchains, oracles, and exchanges. And this is pretty huge because, you know, this is Chainlink's sort of comment on it. You know, this is them showing how this works, goes into Chainlink and then gets put onto any blockchain. Chainlink really is that connective tissue. Chainlink was an aha moment for me in crypto back in 2018 where I kind of went, this technology is very useful. And the thing is now, if you look at how the world of markets work and smart contracts, now the government's actually putting that data directly when it comes out, it will affect markets in the sense that smart contracts might trigger, you know, people might risk on, risk off, and actually develop strategies around that. And it enriches not just the traditional financial world through the benefits that crypto has, but the crypto world in the sense of what it can now do based on a broader data set. You know, data is key to this world that we live in. So this is unbelievably huge. The quote that I always love is, if we had a distributed ledger to kind of record events on from the dawn of mankind, we'd have an extremely different history and reality to what we currently have. And this is the broader power of a kind of center for truth, if you will. And this is all very interesting stuff and ultimately leading us towards a global world. We now blockchains have introduced something rather remarkable, and that is somebody to trust, or something to trust. We don't need to trust any one government. We can all kind of come together under one trustable system. And there's some kind of dystopian-ness to that. Let's talk about the current markets and what's taking place. Despite all this good news, you do have to contend with the seasonality. We did say August was going to be and we actually said go and touch some grass. We're not doing ourselves any favors here. You know, we want the viewers, we want the likes, we want the comments, and thank you to you guys supporting us. We've got one of the largest crypto channels now, certainly here in the United Kingdom. Probably the largest. But you do have this seasonality. We knew it was going to be boring. It very much has been. You know, Bitcoin for August performed at about minus 5.14%. September, you could be in for much of the same thing. Doesn't change any of the broader plans for Bitcoin, or more broadly, the things that we're looking at. It just means you've got to contend with the seasonality. And if we look at this sort of, I wonder what the monthly candle looks like. Probably just looks like what we're kind of experiencing. Yeah, it's generally a negative month. On the day-to-day basis, I mean, really, you're just chopping around here. You know, this is sort of where you started the month. You had a little rally, you've come back, you probably rally again. You know, you'll just probably consolidate up until going into October, which could actually coincide with a lot of these ETFs coming to fruition. This is from Nate Garcia, great guy to follow. Look at all the ETF filings out there. James Seyfarth doing God's work, tackling these. What I mean by crypto ETF floodgates about to open soon. Look at all of these. It's insane. A lot of XRP, a lot of baskets, a lot of XRP, lots of Solanas. And it's pretty remarkable that all of these are likely going to be coming towards the back end of this year. There's no reason for them not to. I think that's really going to fuel the crypto space at a time when, if you look at the total market cap excluding, we don't want to exclude Bitcoin and Ethereum, let's just do excluding Bitcoin. It's on the cusp of, this falling wedge played out beautifully for us. This could just squeeze into continuation. It's on the cusp of a major move, breaking out into all-time high price discovery, completing this cup and handle that we think is going to take you to $6.3 trillion. That's excluding Bitcoin, remember. So the path ahead of us is an amazing one. I truly think markets have got this good time ahead of them. GDP stats somewhat reflect that, perhaps, and go in the face of what people were expecting. I understand things take time to work through, certainly tariffs. However, I think we've got this great macro kind of environment. The S&P is going to do well. Small caps are likely going to outperform it. Altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin. That's a generally good risk environment, and technically we have all the merit to expect that, and certainly the fundamental story and narrative. Right now, you've just got to contend, unfortunately, guys, with the seasonality of the markets. You will get through the other side of this. Go and enjoy the rest of your summers. Touch some grass. You know, go and do, you know, maybe you want to start martial arts or getting back into the gym. Now's a great time to do it, because you're going to need your strength for what's going to be an exciting end to the year. You want to find out what I'm buying, do become a Patreon. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one.